In the previous video, you saw how we sampled out of the back of the truck. Now we're here in our lab, and we're going to show you how to reduce the sample. Before we get into quartering the material, we need to make up some boxes, and we need to label them with some important information. One of the boxes you're going to be putting some material into is going to need to have the contract number, the date, the type of mix that it is, in this case it's half-inch HMA, the mix ID number, what it's going to be used for, in this case is for the mix design verification. This sample will go to the headquarters materials lab, and also the acceptance number. In this box, one of the quarters you're going to be putting in here will have the same information on it, except in this case this is going to be used for your backup sample. If you have any mistakes that you've made during the testing of your HMA and you need to restart, this is the box you're going to use for that purpose. The last box you put a quarter of this material into will have the same information, only it'll be labeled as challenge sample. Now some of the equipment you'll need for HMA will be a quartering device. We've had these fabricated for us, special made, but you can also use something like an aluminum, stainless steel, or other type of splitting device, straight edge, if you like. This is also to be used for splitting your loaf to get your samples of what we're going to go through later. Another thing you'll need is a calibrated thermometer for HMA. You'll also need a spatula for cleaning your tools, and a stainless steel bowl to put your sample in for weighing for the proper size of sample. Also have a vinyl tarp that we're going to lay the hot mix asphalt on during our quartering process. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to place your sample on a splitting tarp. And you're going to place one bucket on top of the other. No mixing will be required at this point. What we're going to do now is use our quartering device, and we're going to quarter this material. At this point, the tester is going to designate which quarter they are going to sample, or excuse me, they're going to test. Once you've determined what that is, the remainder of the material is going to go into these boxes. I'm going to test this quarter right here. Therefore, this quarter will be designated for the challenge test. Always take the opposite quarter of what you're going to be testing for your challenge test. This will be saved at your lab facility until the contractor has challenged this test result. Any one of these quarters can be used for either your backup sample or your mix design verification sample that you'll be sending to headquarters Matt's lab. So either one will suffice. Here's the mix verification or mix design verification sample you're going to be boxing up. And as you're doing this, you want to make sure you don't lose any material, like the fines that have dribbled off onto this table. So give yourself plenty of room while doing this. You're going to remove your quartering device, and you want to scrape any fines left onto it that represent the quarter you're going to test. Everything else is going to be removed from the table. you're going to roll this material from corner to corner a minimum of 4 times. Bring the corners up to the center to make yourself a conical pile. And at this point, you want to take a look at the material that you have and see that the coarse particles are uniformly across the pile before you loaf it. So after you've gotten that to that point, roll the material from side to side and make a loaf. Firmly press on it so it'll hold its form. And again, double check your loaf to make sure that the coarse particles are evenly distributed. Now that we've gotten our loaf in the condition that we want it, we need to take samples from this loaf for our 3 different tests we're going to be running: ignition furnace burn, moisture content, and the rice density. The first thing we're going to do, though, with this loaf is we're going to take our straight edge and we're going to remove approximately 1/4, and this material can be wasted. Now we'll proceed with the ignition furnace test. Stainless steel sample pan will be tared out into your scale. You need a minimum of 1,500 grams for this class of mix. Our scale is reading 1,513.2 grams. That is a sufficient amount of material to run our test for the ignition furnace burn. Again, we have a stainless steel bowl that we have tared into our scale, and we need a minimum of 500 grams for our moisture test. The scale is now reading 649.2 grams. This is a sufficient amount for this test. One thing you will need to also do is to record the temperature of this mixture as you are weighing it. Let the thermometer rest in here for a couple of minutes and then record that temperature. The next test we'll be running is for the rice density. Again, stainless steel bowl, tear it into the scale. We will need a minimum of 1,500 grams for this test. Our scale is now reading 1,555.6 grams, which is a sufficient amount to run this test. At this point in time, we will set this aside. This sample has to cool down to room temperature. The remainder of this material can now be placed into a waste box, along with everything else you've done as far as taking the quarter, the original quarter from that loaf, that can also go into this waste box at this time. And that can be set aside. If you have any mistakes that have been made on your test that you need to rerun, your backup sample will be used for that purpose.